Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you're well, and thanks for tuning in as always. I'm going to be continuing with covering my reviews for the Predator franchise, and as promised, we're not just going to be talking about one movie, not two, but three movies back to back to back, all in one video for today. So without further ado, sit back, relax, grab a snack, and let's get into it. Up first, we have Predator 2, released in 1990, written by the same people who did the first film, Jim and John Thomas, and it was directed by Stephen Hopkins. And in this film, we go from the Central American jungles to the concrete streets of Los Angeles, where not only a massive heat wave is going on, but we find ourselves in intense turf wars between the LAPD, Colombian, Jamaican drug cartels, and we have a new predator watching from afar. Will this conflict be situated, or will this predator be able to do what the first one can and adding more trophies to his collection? Now, this film is set 10 years after the first film, and overall it grossed a whopping $57 million. And although it received initial negative reviews, it over time gained a massive cult following. Something that I appreciate about this film is that I'm not necessarily going to put it over the first film, but it's still, I would say, is on par with the first film overall because something that I noticed while watching it, it doesn't waste any time nor bullets, no pun intended, in getting you right into the action. There's just all, like I said, there's all these different conflicts going on, especially within like the LAPD, Colombian and Jamaican drug cartels. While all this is going on, another predator is coming into the mix, trying to get his hat into the jar, if you will. Now, Arnold, I believe, was going to be in this, but unfortunately, he wasn't over salary disputes mainly. But it still has a really good cast overall. I think Danny Glover was a great choice to play like the main lead. I just love how you can definitely tell he's like a grizzled veteran, and he just has had enough overall. And something that also that I really appreciated too was Bill Paxton. If you're familiar with him, he was one of the colonial marines in the film Aliens, and I really loved his overall relationship dynamics with Danny Glover overall. For some odd reason, I thought that like Danny Glover and Gary Busey were going to be like the main stars, and they kind of were in a way, but it ended up not being the case. Like, I guess you could say that like Gary Busey was like a secondary main character, but not like a primary main character, but it still worked out overall. And again, Bill Paxton was really funny. I loved how he was trying to like flirt with some of the female officers and it was just failing miserably. Don't worry. Definitely relatable. I feel like some of us or most of us have been there. Also, Gary Busey was a really good casting choice as well, and I especially loved his role. He knew history about the Predator, especially after what happened with the events of the first film. They had like secret hidden files covered on it. Oh, it was so good. Similar to the last film, the design of the Predator in this is awesome. It's not the same Predator, obviously, it's a brand new Predator, but I love how this film starts to explore a bit more of the Predator origins and abilities because something that I liked about the first film was that like it kept the overall origins very mysterious and hidden in a way, which is something that I appreciate. But this film, I really like how it kind of starts to delve deeper into more of like the origins and like some of the abilities that it has. Even if it's not to like the full extent, it's still able to like it dabbles because like you get to see like how the predator starts to like mimic voices more and more, which I assume was in the first movie as well, but I didn't quite catch that. I just mainly caught it in this film, but I assume the Jungle Hunter was able to do that as well. Regardless, still a really cool ability because it's a great way to showcase like one of the many ways that it's able to hunt and successfully capture like the targets that it's going after. Something else that I appreciate too, this particular predator that I know is able to see in more than just like the standard infrared because like there's a shot in the movie where like Gary Busey and his team are trying to trap the predator in like this meat house, like grindhouse factory of some sorts, they're able to blind it from the infrared. Kind of similar to how, like, in the first film, when you can't really see people when they're covered in mud. They kind of do something similar to that, but I'm not going to spoil it how they do it in this if you're interested in checking it out. But what it's able to do, it's kind of cool because it switches like the different modes to be able to see. Even if you can't see them fully, you can see like some little features here and there, which I thought was really sick overall. And it really helps to explore like the overall customs and traditions too, because like towards the end of the film, like I said, they have like that big climactic battle in the ship and well, kills the main predator. You get to see some other predators make a cameo appearance, and part of like their custom traditions is that like obviously during combat, if they're able to defeat a predator, they get rewarded. One of the predators gives the main character, Danny Glover, a 1715 pistol, which was really sick to see. For some more production history behind the film, they wanted to go for a more urban and hip design, which is why, again, we go from Central America to Los Angeles. And I think overall, especially with what they were going for with the overall vibe, I think this helped to capture that overall aesthetic very nicely. A more urban jungle idea, if you will. And of course, we have the return of Alan Silvestri on the overall score and soundtrack for the film, which was really sick. And yeah, you want to talk about awesome sequences? How about that fight on the train with like the flashing lights and you can barely see what's going on? But I think that was really cool too. Helped to add to like the overall tension, suspense, even scares as well with like the flashing lights again and really a unique way to capture that overall still framing and cinematography. Very, very nice. And I think they wanted to go for like an NC-17 rating, but they ended up switching to an R rating because reading up on some behind the scenes and especially with what they were going for, I imagine probably wasn't going to work out to the best of their ability. But hey, still a really good R rating overall. So yeah, these are just like brief little things I wanted to talk about that I really noticed and I especially loved about the sequel to the first Predator movie. I really enjoyed it overall, and I definitely highly recommend if I were to give it a rating, definitely a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't have any nitpicks or like issues with the film, mainly just again, I'm not gonna put this over the first film, but that's just more of an opinion rather than a nitpick or issue. But still really enjoy this film overall, and I highly recommend you guys go check it out. Up next, we have Predators, released in 2010. It was written by Alex Lebuck and Michael Finch, with the director on board this time being Nimrod Antal. I apologize if I butchered that. I'm sorry. And in this film, we find ourselves with trained killers who are thrown onto this mysterious unknown planet. They're basically thrown on this planet to try and survive an advanced race of super predators, and they must find a way to not only survive but get back to Earth. Will they be able to do this? Who knows? Watch the film to find out. Not kidding. Now you might be asking yourself, this is a very big jump in films between 1990 and 2010. Didn't we have the two Alien vs. Predator films in between? Yes, we did. However, I mentioned it briefly, but I'm going to be covering those two films on a separate video at a separate point in time. I mainly just wanted to cover like the Predator solo films, and I might also do the solo Alien media at some point in the near future. Now, Predators. Overall, I thought it was really solid. You want to talk about how like the previous film was essentially like kind of exploring more of like the Predator origins, even if it was just like in a slow pace. This film really, really gets into like the meat and potatoes overall because it explores more of like the overall custom traditions. And I really love the overall aspect of like how they're essentially using them as like targets for hunting to try to like not only advance themselves, but like pretty much prove themselves, if you will. This film overall grossed 127 million with a budget of just 40 million, which was crazy to see. And I really love the overall concept of super predators because like you can definitely tell like who is the hierarchy, if you will. And we got the return of a classic predator. Solid cast overall. they get the job done with the material that they have. Obviously, it's not like Arnold from the first movie or even Danny Glover for the second movie for that matter. But I still think that like overall the casting was not bad overall, and Adrian Brody is a phenomenal lead. I thought he was really good, cool in this, and it was a nice surprise to see Lawrence Fishburne in this as well. Not too bad overall, except Topher Grace. I'm sorry. He is just not a personal favorite of mine, but don't take that into consideration or like the wrong way, out of context, whatever you want to call it. This is mainly just because of the simple fact that I'm watching him coming off from especially Spider-Man 3, and yeah, you could be like, oh, it's not necessarily his fault. It's just writing, which could be the case. Like I said, could be the case. But in a nutshell, Topher Grace was just not a favorite of mine overall. Also, this film has some really good cinematography that took me off guard, especially with that brief but amazing action sequence with the Falcon Predator and the one Yakuza dude. Ooh. Now, as I mentioned briefly, there was a massive gap in between the second Predator film from 1990 and this film from 2010. And there's a reason for that because early in 1994, the producer had an early script for this film while working on another film, Desperado. But at the time, it was denied due to like large budgeting because like they just saw like the budget would be too heavy, so they just denied it. And when I say deny, like not necessarily like cancel the film entirely, but just keep it on hold, if you will. And 15 years later is when they would decide, like, hey, all right, we can greenlit this film. And which, yeah, kind of sucked, but at the same time, I could see that as a good call because obviously, like, working on two different films at the same time, I imagine, it would cause scheduling issues, conflicts, and it would just be a total mess overall. So I could totally understand why, especially like doing like the overall research behind that. It was shot on a 53-day schedule with exterior filming being in Koko, Hawaii, and 22 filming days, like the rest of it, being from September 28th to November 1st of 2009. Also, 60% of it was filmed in Texas, and that was mainly in an attempt to be eligible for tax benefits overall. Gotta love those good old taxes, right? Overall, even though it grossed 127 million worldwide, it still gained mixed reviews overall, and I could see that. I could understand in a sense, but at the same time, like I said, I thought this was a very solid film. Nothing special. It really helps to explore more of the Predator origins, which was really sick. And the cast, nothing special, but they get the job done. And they had some pretty cool, sick, unique Predator designs. And again, that action sequence in like the fields with like the Japanese Yakuza person fighting like the Falcon, it's very brief, but it's amazing overall. And I would give this film a 3 out of 5 stars. Alrighty, so off to a good start overall, like especially with Predator 2 and Predators, these were first time watches and gotta say, not too bad. So up next we have The Predator. So this will be an interesting one to revisit because I remember watching this a long time ago. You know, uh, I can't remember exactly when, but I remember watching it and I didn't really have much of an opinion to think about it. I just thought it was just like, hey, this was okay overall. So this will be a fun revisit to come back to. And hey, what could go wrong?
A few moments later.
I thought this was okay. All right. So last but most certainly least, or sorry, my bad, not least, ugh, we're covering The Predator. Yes, this is happening. It was released in 2018, directed by Shane Black, with Fred Dekker being the co-writer on board, and this film centers around how a boy triggers the return of the predator species. I'm not going to say how, but it's pretty goofy and wacky the way everything unfolds with the chaos. And in order to prevent that, a ragtag of misfits, along with a scientist, are forced to come together to unite and stop the Predator. That's basically what you're getting. And oh boy, where do I begin? I know this film gets a lot of like hate and not the best one in the franchise, but is it really that bad of a film? Yes. But it's not the kind of bad that makes you question your existence on why you watch films to begin with. But still, it's very disappointing, let's just say. And I think a lot of that just has to come with like the overall writing because there are some forgettable characters in this. But credit where credit's due, there's some moments that I actually kind of liked. I'm not gonna lie. Um, the scene where the fugitive predator is breaking out of the lab after being captured, I thought that was kind of cool. Cool sequence overall. And I love I love the funny thumbs up moment in the back of the truck when he's killing all the soldiers and the driver's like, "Hey, what's going on?" You just see like the predator take like the um the arm that's been like mutilated and it just sticks it out in the shape of a thumbs up. That was kind of funny. And I still appreciate the Predator looks overall. Like the Fugitive was really cool. Still kept with the overall classic Predator vibe, which is cool. Super Predator was not bad as well. Massive too, I will say. Some of the points that start to fall flat for me is that, for one, the CGI is not the best. It just feels very wonky, and it just doesn't feel like it feels out of place, if you will. The ending's really confusing, and we'll get to that as to why. But beforehand, just want to touch briefly on some more of like the production history. It grossed 160 overall with an $88 million budget. Generally negative reviews, like I mentioned briefly. And unlike the second film where like Schwarzenegger wasn't set to appear, I think there was a conversation going on where Schwarzenegger and Shane Black were conversing with each other, where he wanted to reprise his role from Dutch in the first film, but that ended up being just canceled overall again due to like the length of the cameo. And I guess that was something that Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't really appreciate. And the main reason why this film got like a lot of general negative reviews was because of like the heavy reshooting. And you can definitely tell where like the heavy reshooting comes into play because like initially the way that the film ends with obviously like the scientists having like the armor attached to them, like the super predator armor attached to them, wasn't going to be the ending. There was an initial ending where two emissary predators come to Earth to help humans fight off mutant hybrids. And the way that they explained the hybrids was actually kind of pretty cool. But unfortunately, obviously it was changed to become more streamlined, of course. And it resulted in tonal inconsistencies due to too many genre blends. Now, you might be thinking, didn't the first film have like a couple of genres come into play? Yes, it did, but it only had two that it focused on. And the way that that film plays out is beautiful because it feels more natural. This film, on the other hand, I don't know, me personally, and I apologize if this sounds harsh, but it's the truth that I noticed. It felt very forced. And I don't know, it just didn't really do it overall to me for me. And it would have been interesting to see like that initial ending, how the emissary predators come to Earth, how those mutant hybrids escaped, how like the predator armor that was shown briefly would have been able to like come into effect when like fighting off the creatures. That would have been cool to see, but I know that Black expressed like Shane expressed like a desire to release like that ending as like an alternate director's cut. I don't know at the time of this recording if it's out or it never went into fruition, but you can let me know in the comments if you want if that ended up being an actual thing. And if it is, I'd be interested to get my hands on that, see like how that initial ending played out. But overall, with The Predator from 2018, I thought this was a very disappointing film coming back to it. It's amazing to see like how our mindsets change over time when it comes to like particular films. You might like something when you initially watch it, but when you come back to it years later, it could either stay the same or change over time. I think the biggest issue was just the writing overall for me, but there were some moments that I appreciate. Like I said, the design of the predators and like the creatures were cool. I love like the overall lab sequence when like he's escaping and the thumbs up moment was kind of funny. Some of the jokes were like like hit and miss, but forgettable characters overall, wonky CG, and again, the writing. If I were to give this a rating, it would be a 1.5 out of 5 stars. I apologize if that's harsh, but this is just my opinion. Just like I said, very disappointing overall. And with that concludes the next three Predator films in the franchise that I covered with Predator 2, Predators, and The Predator. Definitely make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and look out for my review of Prey coming very, very soon. And I'm hoping that's a step in the right direction. Hopefully that's an improvement because obviously you could tell that like quality of the films kind of went down overall, but it is what it is, right? Especially with The Predator. The first two films are fine. I definitely recommend go checking out the first two films that I covered in this video. The Predator, I'm not gonna stop you. If you want to check it out, by all means, see what you think and let me know in the comment section below, as always. Like I said, look out for Prey coming very, very soon, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.